ever stopped mid-game and just wondered what makes games like PUBG or Fortnite so ridiculously addictive? Why millions of us drop in, battle it out, and even spend real money day after day? Well, it's way more than just cool graphics or being quick on the trigger. There's a deep, kind of hidden science at play, a whole complex machine running on psychology, economics, and design. All right, let's crack this thing open and see what's really going on inside. So let's start with a number that'll kind of blow your mind. In 2020 alone, the mobile games market pulled in $77.2 billion. Yeah, billion with a B. Just to put that in perspective, mobile games alone make up almost half of the entire global gaming industry's revenue. This isn't just some hobby, it's a massive economic engine. So, what in the world is fueling it? Because when a player drops $5 on a new skin or a weapon charm, they're not just buying a bunch of pixels, right? They're buying something you can't really touch. They're buying into this really powerful idea called the experience economy. And this is it, the experience economy. The whole idea is that the real thing being sold is a memory, a feeling, a moment you won't forget. That awesome skin isn't just a costume, it's part of the story of that one insane match you won against all odds. Game studios aren't just selling us items, they're selling us the building blocks to create our own epic experiences. But okay, if it's all about the experience, what's that psychological trigger that actually makes a player hit the buy button? To figure that out, we've got to peel back the first layer and really get into the science of the player's wallet. Whoa, okay, this looks like something straight out of a university lecture. Because, well, it is, but don't worry about it. All these circles on the left, you see them? Social value, emotional value. Those are the reasons we buy things. And all those arrows, they're all pointing to that one box on the right, in-game purchasing behavior. So this whole thing is just a roadmap of what leads us to spend money. And at the very heart of that complicated chart is a pretty simple idea called the theory of consumption values. It basically just says that we don't buy stuff for just one reason. Our decision is always a mix of a bunch of different values we see in it. So it turns out three values in particular are super important for in-game purchases. First up is conditional value. Just think of a limited time holiday themed outfit. It only really has value during that event, right? Then there's emotional value. This is just how an item makes you feel. Does that glowing axe make you feel like a total badass? Yep, that's emotional value. And finally, monetary value. Is this battle pass a good deal? Are you getting a lot of cool stuff for your 10 bucks? And then you have these two powerful forces that just pour gasoline on the fire. First, trendiness. When a huge streamer starts using a certain skin, its social value just skyrockets. And second, customization, that deep down part of us that just needs to express ourselves, to turn some generic character into your character. Okay, so we get the money behind the cool outfits. But none of that matters if the game itself isn't gripping, right? So what about the actual gameplay? What really decides who gets that legendary winner winner chicken dinner? I mean, this is the question at the heart of every single battle royale. Did you win because you were legitimately the best player on the map, or did you just get super lucky with the loot and where the final circle ended up? Well, as it turns out, the answer is a little bit of both. Every single match is basically this constant tug of war between two big forces: your perceived skill, your aim, your strategy, your map knowledge, and perceived randomness, which is everything you just can't control. The real secret sauce of a great battle royale is balancing these two on a razor's edge. I mean, just think about it for a second. The final play zone, totally random. Those airdrops with the best gear, dropped in random spots. Even the bullet spray from your rifle has some randomness baked into it. And maybe most importantly, the loot you find in the first 30 seconds of a match is a complete and total crapshoot. And this is the genius of the core design. The game is built so that your skill gives you an edge, for sure, but randomness makes sure that even the best player in the world can have a bad round, and a brand new player can get a lucky win. That perfect balance is what keeps the game exciting and keeps us all coming back for more. So, you have this incredibly delicate balance of skill and luck. But that balance is built on hundreds of tiny game mechanics. And when we really zoom in and look at those mechanics, we find this fascinating gap between what players say they want and what developers are actually building. First, let's look at what players are asking for. This survey data is super clear. You see those high orange bars? Players are saying that dynamic movement stuff, like sprinting, jumping, and vaulting, is hugely important to how much they enjoy the game. Okay, just keep that in your head for a second. Now, let's look at the developer reality. This chart shows us how often certain combat mechanics actually show up in these games. I mean, as you'd guess, aiming down sights and reloading are in pretty much everything. But the real story is in the stuff that's less common. And boom, here's the disconnect. The same research found that players really want advanced grenade mechanics. Like being able to cook them before you throw or having different throwing ranges. But the data shows those features are in less than half of the games that were studied. That is a huge gap between what players want and what developers are actually building. So, what happens when that gap gets too wide? Well, you get friction. You get a whole lot of players feeling like the developers just aren't listening. Let's take a look at what that actually sounds like out in the wild. This is a real comment from a Reddit thread right after a big update dropped. It's short, it's raw, it's emotional. This is that immediate gut reaction when a change just doesn't line up with what players feel the game actually needs. And this one, man, this one really captures that bigger feeling perfectly. The sense of being ignored, of developers adding things that nobody asked for, is a direct result of that expectation gap we just saw in the data. And this really gets us to the core of the developer's dilemma. It's not that they're just ignoring players, they're trying to juggle three things at once: the emotional feedback from Reddit, the cold, hard performance data from millions of matches, and their own creative vision for where the game is going. It's a constant high wire balancing act. So, we've basically taken the entire machine apart. We've looked at the fuel, the gears, the engine, and the blueprints. Now it's time to put it all back together and ask the big question: what does all this mean for you, the player? Think about the journey we just took. We started with the massive, multi-billion-dollar experience economy. Then we dove into the psychological triggers that make a virtual helmet feel valuable. We broke down the delicate dance of skill and luck that decides who wins. And finally, we uncovered that gap between what players want and what they actually get. At the end of the day, these games are so much more than just entertainment. They're these finely tuned systems of psychology, probability, and code, all designed to create an experience you can't put down. The next time you drop from that plane, you'll see it all through a new lens. And you can ask yourself the real question: are you playing the game, or is the game playing you?